Good morning and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. This is Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you live, albeit a little bit late today from Fredericksburg, Texas. All right, let's give it up for Fredericksburg. How's everybody out there today? It's a little gray, a little overcast here in this sleepy little burg. This is an interesting place. I feel like I have to say this. I feel like I'm passing through. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm passing through. And it's okay. I mean, maybe it will be a long-term solution to my peregrinations, my eternal peregrinations. You don't have to have these kinds of soul sets designated for people in terms of like who they are, in terms of, kind of an archetypal or galactic level. I would have to say that I am consistently in the wanderer range. I'm a wanderer. I am your galactic wanderer. And here it is. I find myself in this lifetime in this place, Fredericksburg. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? Who knows how it'll turn out? But we definitely had a very interesting live stream last night, which we managed to launch and get off the ground. It's the first live stream that took place here. Mercury Retrograde is Mercury Retrograde is kicking some ass. Let me just say that right now. It is kicking some ass. Yesterday, I'll give you. By the way, okay, I figured this thing out. Now, there's really not very many places to shop here. This is a very small town. They have very strict rules and regulations about who and what can set up shop inside the city limits. Basically, if you're a box lot store, you cannot set up shop. If you're a chain or a box lot store, you cannot set up shop inside the city limits of Fredericksburg. And so if you are, you've got to get on the edge of town. And I've mentioned this before, as you come in, you'll see basically all the different stores that are available here that are, or quote unquote, restaurants. They're the worst ones, like Pizza Hut. Who the fuck wants to go to Pizza Hut? Pardon my language. Pizza Hut. Are you kidding me? The only thing that's interesting about Pizza Hut is their logo. Got some police action here today at the school. I'm right across from the elementary school, and I saw one cop pulling somebody over this morning and another one going actually into the school. I wonder if I'm going to be able to witness a drill from my porch one of these days. I may have a feeling that might be the case. Because they love to run these drills, don't they? So one of the drills now, this is what I've heard. One of the drills now that they're going to be running in these schools is somebody knocking on the door, opening the door, and there's a guy with a gun. Apparently a police officer. This is just terrible shit. This is terrible stuff. This is true. I've heard this. This is part of one of the drills in this town. Okay? In this town. They actually had the FBI come to schools in this town. They came to the middle school, and they talked about child trafficking. I mean, can we, program our children with any more fear? My God. By the way, Matt from Arizona sent me a very interesting story. And the story is that Utah has apparently passed a free-range parenting bill. Okay, check this out. This is how bad things are. This free-range parenting bill has been put into motion so kids can walk to school by themselves, ride a bike down the street by themselves. I kid you not. I kid you not, because apparently kids who are by themselves have been stopped and pulled over in places like Utah or in other states. Can you believe this? We are living in such a different, and this is where we get into the depth and the power of cognitive dissonance. Because the world around us, we have very similar markers, right? These markers have been there for a very long time. There are houses that have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. In some cases, neighborhoods that you grew up in are still there. They're still, not, unless you grew up in Houston or, or someplace in Florida, they're there, right? They're there. There are these personal, psychic, and social markers. We have baseball fields. We have football fields. We have rituals that also reflect this sense of place, but not the time. The time is different. The time and the feeling of the place is decidedly different. And here is one of the biggest ripple effects of cognitive dissonance. It's pretty significant because we are not living in the same world that these structures, the buildings, and even the rituals will provide us with, or have provided us with. We're living in a very different time. Very, very different time. So being able to even have your kid sort of self-manage, and they had to pass a law in Utah in order for them to legally cover their ass, apparently. Wow. Mind-blowing. Amazing times here. But, we're indoctrinating our kids with fear. More and more fear. We're amping up the fear. I've been actually tracking also what's happened not only in Parkland, post-Parkland, Washington, D.C., and more. There's a lot more, and we'll talk about it today. I busted out a lot of information on the live stream last night, and I'm going to repeat some of it just so that if you didn't, or you weren't a part of the live stream, you can also get the benefit of having this downloaded to you. And if you were part of the live stream, so you'll have to sit through it again. But I think it's pretty interesting information, and it is definitely astrological in its scope and context. So I'll try to carve it out for you so you understand what I'm talking about and how it can impact. Well, not even how it can impact. You can just file it away and say, okay, this is interesting. So we had the March for the March. And one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to find out who was behind the March of the March. So I went to heavy.com and I got some pertinent information. So I'm gonna shoot you some information here. So this is gonna give you a sense of the organization and the networks that are behind these kids. And say what you want about the left. Say what you want about the social Marxists and for all intents and purposes, the Bolsheviks. This is what they are. They're Bolsheviks. This is how far the left has moved down the line. They are great at organizing. They are amazing at organizing. They're amazing at organizing people, mobilizing people, and they are very, very good at using those Olinsky touchstones in order to ignite, activate, mobilize, and catalyze, and charge, and really, really charge an action. And this is a new action, okay? This piece with the kids is a new action. They're going to try and get as much out of it as possible between now and the summertime, because in the summertime it's going to drop off. You're trying to round up these kids is going to be challenging. What they're really, really hoping to do is to catalyze a whole group of 18-year-olds, 17 to 18-year-olds that are going to come out and vote in November and shock the system with their version. It would be the anti-deplorables, right? The anti-deplorables. In fact, these would be probably the grandkids of the deplorables. So if they were born in, say, 1996, people would be 26 years old, roughly, or in the 2000s. So we're talking, likely actually the very tail end, probably Gen X. These are the Gen X kids. These are the children of the Gen Xers. These are the Gen X. These are the next generation Gen X. That would be true. That would be true. Because my son is a part of this generation. And that would make his mother, who is a little bit younger than me, who's Gen X. So, yes. All right, let's get into who they are. So, March 1st, okay, so these are the celebrity and entrepreneur donations that funded. There's Emma Gonzalez with her radical, she's wearing the flag, she's wearing a Cuban armband. Cuban armband. She's got all of her little, she looks like that like Jennifer Aniston's character in Office Space. She's got all of her radical flair. So who do we have here? Well, we've got people like George and Amal Clooney, Steven Spielberg, Kate Capshaw, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Oprah Winfrey. They all pledged to donate $500,000 each, okay? John Legend, Chrissy Teigen, they donated $25K. The dating app Bumble donated $100,000. $100,000. So let's see, we've got, that's $1 million. That's $2 million. Probably about a little over $2 million. Eli Broad, who is a philanthropist and a businessman, he donated $1 million. That's $3.5 million. Let's see, who else do we have here? So Broad is part of Kaufman and Broad Home Corporation, KB Home. He was the first home builder listed on the New York Stock Exchange. This is an old dude. He's 84 years old. Let's see. Oh, isn't this interesting? He sold his company. Okay, here we go. Let me read this. He also earned money from buying Sun Life Insurance in '71 and transforming it into a retirement savings company called Sun America, which he sold to the American International Group, AIG, in 1999 for $18 billion. We all know what happened to AIG. Got sucked up into the financial crisis vortex of 2019, 10 years after the purchase of it. Other business leaders, donations came from Mark Benioff. That's $1 million. Joshua Kushner, who is Jared Kushner's brother, he gave $50,000. Gucci gave $50,000. And the Miami Dolphins gave $100,000. By the way, Joshua Kushner was seen at the march. Board members for March of Our Lives determined how to use those funds, according to the Huffington Post. It's a lot of money. Let's add it up again. So let's see. We have basically $2.5 million from that top line group. We have $3.5 million when we throw in the million from Eli Broad. $4.5 million from Mark Benioff, Kushner, $50,000, Gucci, $500,000. So roughly about $5 million was donated. Of course, this is all going to be tax deductible for these people. It'll all be tax deductible because it'll go through Michael Bloomberg's. Not all donors may be known, since March for Our Lives registered as a 501c, which allows them to keep donors' identities secret. Some sister rallies are self-funding. He'll GoFundMe. So March for Our Lives is a non-profit. Okay. Let's see. Who else is behind March for Our Lives? We have Everytown. And Everytown is called Everytown for Gun Safety. Hashtag Never Again. It helped them out. And who is behind Everytown? It's Michael Bloomberg. Also, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. That's MDAGA, GSA, MADGSA. Man, can't they come up with a better acronym than that? Moms demand action for gun sense in America. Mayors against illegal guns. Mayag. Madagasia. They need to come up with better. For all this money, for all this organization, they came up with some shit acronyms, I have to say. Man. I don't want to spend too much time. I'm not on their budget. I'm not going to figure it out for them. Every Town was originally funded by Matt Bloomberg, who gave $50 million to the group. When it first launched, Bloomberg is the founder, CEO, and owner of Bloomberg LP Financial Services. Every Town has a survivor network of 1,000 activists in 46 states, composed of people who survived gun violence. In 2016, Every Town had 130 employees. It's located in Manhattan and spent $37 million just in 2014, including $4.6 million on political campaign activities. You know what that is, right? That's organizing. $3.5 million on advertising and $1.7 million on lobbying. Okay, so the NRA spent $345 million. They said $20 million of that went to lobbying. Every Town had about 100,000 donors as of mid-2016. Every Town's primary legislative goal, according to the Washington Post, is more comprehensive background check, blah, 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 blah. Look, these people are going to continue. They're going to continue to go after arms, the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, by the way. It's all part of it. They've linked the First and the Second Amendment together until they get what they want. And they've reached a tipping point here because they got into the wheelhouse of kids, mothers, that Cancerian kind of mama bear mentality, which is, don't fuck with my kid. We're going to take the guns away because you are threatening the sanctity and safety of our children. And you get active mama bears involved, and you will have active activist mama bears. Other people that are on the board for Every Town include John Mack, who is a former CEO of Morgan Stanley, and Warren Buffett. Then, of course, you've got the Soros money that comes in and actually helps fund this stuff as well. And we have all of the little brown shirts who are also engaged. Not just engaged, but activated. It's like a sleeper cell, right? Isn't that what these kids feel like? They feel like sleeper cells that have been activated. Like they've been in training for this their entire lives. David Hogg has been in training for this his entire life. And David Hogg is, you think he has a big head? I mean, David Hogg is a huge head. It's like David Hogg is a head on top of a kind of a stick figure body, right? He looks like a stick man or a stick boy. He's got an even bigger head now, and I've been listening to him, and now he's talking about things like white privilege. I mean, holy shit. We're not just talking about a sleeper cell that's been activated. We're talking about now they're getting into this other wheelhouse, this isn't just about guns. It's about white privilege, which has allowed you to keep your guns. It's morphing. This whole thing is morphing now. And again, we're in the divide and conquer. We're in the divide and conquer stratagem and the divide and conquer territory. What's the big division now? It is old versus young. It's old versus young. And look, I'm not young. I'm in my late 50s, okay? I'm in my late 50s, and I know what it's like to understand and witness young energy and old energy, or older energy, okay? And there is a distinct gap here in the presentation and the energy signature between the two. If you saw a bunch of old geezers, theoretically, 50s on, marching, and you saw a group of really vibrant, electrified youth, which one is going to be more compelling to look at? It's going to be the youth, to be quite honest with you, because this is how our country has been wired, right? Our country is wired from an astrological standpoint. If you look at the Sibley chart in the third house of the United States chart, what do you see there? You see the Aquarian moon in the third house. And what is the third house? The third house is youth. Gemini is young, right? Sag, on the other side of the third house, the ninth house, is sagacious. Sagacious, wise, wizened, older. Isn't it interesting that we have a tendency to either elect Gemini or Leo presidents, even though the houses in the United States chart aren't Gemini? Well, the cusps are determined by the sign. So here we're talking about the third house, which is Aquarius, and then the ninth house, which is Leo. But we tend to elect either, generally speaking, in recent history, Gemini or Leo presidents, and Leo being, of course, at the zenith or the apex of the United States chart. So it would make a lot of sense that we'd have Leo presidents because they're rising, they're close to the midheaven of the United States, which happens to be Virgo, by the way, with that Neptune in Virgo. So very confused. And we're about to go through a Neptune opposition with this country as well. So anyway, I was just trying to make a case for this energy. And here's what's happening is this is a kind of a perfect storm in a lot of ways from the U.S. third house chart. And what we're going to see now over the course of the next few months, because we have this very long arc between Mars and Capricorn and Mars and Aquarius. And right now Mars is in Capricorn. And it's moving into Aquarius. Let me find out. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 moment here. And I'll tell you when it moves into Aquarius. This is a very important transit historically because of where we are in time space here. So I'm just going to whip into the old ephemeris. And let's get into it. Let's see. So, okay. Mars goes into Aquarius on the 17th of May. And it continues to move through Aquarius until it's a very slow, like Mars is slowing down because it's about to go retrograde because it goes into Aquarius on the 17th of May and it's at 0. So it goes all the way up to 9 and it retrogrades on the 27th of June, 9 degrees. And then it goes all the way back to Capricorn again through the summer. Okay, so we're doing a Mars retrograde throughout the summer in Aquarius. Wow, that's interesting. And then it goes back into Aquarius in September and it speeds up. So September 12th, 1 day after September 11th. And it goes fast forward all the way into November, and at 0 degrees Pisces, that's where Mars finally gets out of Aquarius, and that's on the 16th of November. So we're going to be between 2 Mars cycles from March to November. That's a lot. And what we're going to see is Mars go through the U.S. third house where there's the moon there. The moon in Aquarius. What do we have? What is that? That's the radical mom, isn't it? The radical mother with moon in Aquarius. So here we go. Here comes Mars activating the radical mother. I was watching some of the footage from Austin, Texas, because I was watching Owen Schroyer basically go behind enemy lines and try to engage people. If you don't know Owen Schroyer, he works for Alex Jones. He cut his teeth working, basically showing up during the run up to the election. He's from St. Louis, so he was a street debater. He's cleaned up pretty well. He was a little rough around the edges. He's cleaned up pretty well, but he was great at debating this guy by the name of Carl the Cock. And the video of him debating this guy went totally viral, and Alex Jones snatched him up, and now he's a dyed-in-the-wool member of InfoWars. So Owen Schroyer was walking around trying to engage people at the March for the March in Austin, at the state capitol. And I was watching the footage of the people, and I talked about this last night. Talk about a lack of energy. My God. These people slump around, and they got their cell phones out, they're taking pictures. I mean, what the hell have we become here? Now, the energy is being, where the energy is being siphoned off to? It's being siphoned off to the top of the experience. That's what's happening. People don't understand this, right? Whether it's in Austin or San Antonio or I don't know, Chicago or St. Louis or wherever, this is a hierarchical structure. It's like a pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid, in terms of the public presence or the face, are people like David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, Ryan Deitch. These are the people, Cameron Kasky. These are the people that are essentially running from, well, they're not running it, but they're the face. They're the face of Never Again. So these kids now are the recipients of the collective energy that is flowing to the top of that pyramid. How would you like to be 17 or 18 years old in some cases? In the case of David Hogg, I believe David Hogg's about 25. And Emma Gonzalez might be older as well. Cameron Kasky could be a high school student. But clearly David Hogg has a very fuzzy past. Let's put it that way. And there was that video where the guy who's on his debate team outs him as being 25 years old from California. And David Hogg says, shocking. He kind of lifts his eyebrows and says, shocking. Right? So if you're David Hogg and you're 25 years old, 25 is still pretty young. I remember when I was 25, I was alive. I was 25 and alive. I was in great shape, let's put it that way. I'm still alive, don't get me wrong. Imagine David Hogg. You're David Hogg, and you're in high school. Like, you're like undercover. You're a 25-year-old dude, and basically you've been inserted into this high school specifically for this moment in time. It's kind of like being around a bunch of people that you have a lot more experience than, you have a lot more life force, and in his case, probably life experience. Because I think there's gaps for David Hogg, right? I think there's gaps. Because it looks like he graduated from high school in California around 2014. Around 2014. So that would mean, so we got 20, so there's about a 40, so he's 20, say he's 18 when he graduates. 2014 to 2018, so that's 4 years. Okay, so 22. I've heard he's 25. Maybe, just maybe, he was 19 when he graduated, so now we're up into that 23-year-old. But let's say, for the sake of the gap, 22. Now, what did David Hogg do between the age of, from roughly 2015 to 2018? He had 3 years worth of downtime. What did he do during that time? If indeed my hypothesis is true, and that he is not a true senior at Marjory Stoneman High School, what did he do during that time? Where did he go? Who did he train with? What were his contacts? What was going on in his life? It's the lost years of Jesus with David Hogg. My sense is that he went through very rigorous training. But anyway, getting back to the fact that they're on top of this pyramid, that's where the energy is going. This is siphoning off of energy. And not just any energy, right? There's a lot more energy that's available if you're 13, 14, 15 years old than, say, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 60 plus. I don't care how good you take care of yourself. I don't care how much life force you have. I don't care how much energy you still have. It's a different kind of energy, right? It's fresh. It's virginal. You see where I'm going with this? This is a massive, massive loosh operation as well. Massive loosh, because they're tapping into youth in a big way. And those kids, those young people, are at the top of it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're already watching this thing morph. David Hogg can't control his mouth. Now he's completely foul-mouthed. You can look up what he says on the internet. He's fuck this and shit, and he's adapting the language of a young radical. It's like, okay, I'm going after every single sacred cow that's out there. I'm not going to be the nice, polite boy who has stepped up in the breach and the void and the vacuum. This kid was so invested, and I mean invested, in making sure that he was getting his video correct, right? He was interviewing people while the shooting was going on and asking them about gun control and guns in schools. I mean, the whole thing it's so sociopathic, and it makes my skin crawl. And I hope to God, I pray to God that David Hogg and these kids are uncovered. Because if they're uncovered and it's clear that David Hogg is older than he is, now the records can be changed, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes on. I mean, there's a lot of money here. People with connections, big money, big connections, right? Huge connections, huge. And they can move data around. They can make data disappear. It happens all. Look at Obama. Obama basically had no past at all. You had to go back and talk to people who actually knew Obama. Very few of them, by the way. The ones that they did know were in prison. Yeah, interesting, right? I was reading this piece about revolutions and who are behind revolutions. And one of the common threads here is that between the French Revolution, the American Revolution, there was a really hardcore connection to Freemasonry, and then maybe Freemasonry 1A and Rosicrucianism 1B. And one could make a case that Freemasonry is the generative force behind all the modern revolutions, and perhaps even the Bolshevik Revolution. Okay? So one of the things that we might look into in dialogue with, even though it's at the periphery, is the Freemasonic involvement in what we are currently experiencing as a social revolution. And make no mistake about it, we are in the midst of a social revolution. You may say, oh, this is just kids, or this is just another left-wing stunt on identity politics. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is a complete broadside against a number of different, quote-unquote, freedoms. And these are just the freedoms that we, freedom of speech, and the right to bear arms, but there are other freedoms that are involved here. Right? And really what we're talking about are existential freedoms. God, the freedom to be, the freedom to speak, the freedom to be able to have a point of view that is a counterpoint to whatever it is that's being discussed, protested, marched in front of us. Big freedoms. The freedom ultimately to be a free entity, a free person, a sovereign being in this country and in this world. Because I'll tell you, if they take the guns away, It is the one thing, the one tiny little sliver that keeps us. Whatever your thoughts about guns, gun control, I don't own a gun. I don't own a gun. But I firmly believe in and support that right. Now, there are people who say, well, we don't necessarily need the bad guns. You know, and it just starts, right? Well, we're going to start with this gun, and we'll start with this gun. Next thing you know, all of a sudden, well, the only guns you can have now are antiques. Like if you're a true collector, you're just going to go after rare guns. And we'll allow rare guns, which will probably barely fire. And if they really needed to be fired, you couldn't really count on them, right? Or if you could count on them, it'd be like taking a knife to a gunfight. Which brings me to this next point that I wanted to talk about, which was the face of guns in Washington, D.C. Though there were plenty of guns at that march on the 24th. There were thousands of guns at that march. But you know where they were? They were attached to the bodies of the police, the state troopers. They were attached to the bodies of the National Guard, the Army. They were all there. They were all there. They all had guns. And boy, weren't they nice. Not a single one went off and killed a kid. Right? So what is the message behind that? I'll tell you what the message behind that is. The message behind that is, if the right people have guns, it's okay. Look, these people, they're nice. We can trust these people. These people have our best interests at heart. So if the state has guns, what does the state allow us to do? The state supports us so that we can have our right to assemble and freedom of speech. Do you see where that connects? This is a masterful psyop. Totally masterful psyop. Because not only does it demonize the people that have guns, which is quite a few Americans, by the way, demonizes them, but it celebrates the people that do have guns at that event, and it can be counted on and trusted. How about that? That's what I'm talking about. That is part of the big picture in what they are selling. Oh, they're so nice. Look at them protect our children. They're protecting them. Well, where the hell were they when, theoretically, Nicholas Cruz was running around pumping people full of lead? Well, I'll tell you where they were. They were outside. They were in the bushes. Scott Israel, stand down, stand down, stand down. Then they waited. They waited for the dudes to come out. There's that video. Nobody talks about that video. People don't see that on CNN. They don't see it on Fox. They don't see it on MSNBC. It's a video of about 5 guys running out of the school with what looks like a trove of weapons. They throw them in the back of the pickup truck, and then they haul ass out of there. Okay? You want to know who perped Parkland? It's in that video. That's who perped Parkland. And of course, there's the teacher who said, well, I saw somebody in full metal combat gear with a rifle I had never seen before. Nobody's talking about that, though. And yet, theoretically, they're the ones that are there to serve and protect over the youth of this country as they exercise their freedom to assemble and their First Amendment rights. Nothing went down, thank God. It didn't. It couldn't. It couldn't. However, now we're seeing a counter movement and a march now that's going to be set up by the advocates for the right to bear arms, gun safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. People that are gun advocates, and I'm sure that it will be far less well organized than the left. The right doesn't really organize that much. They don't organize that much. They're not great at it. The left has been fantastic at it for decades. They know how to do it. They have their little meetings, their little sleeper cells. The right just wants to be left alone, right? want to be left alone. That's what the right wants to do. So leave me. People are leave me alone. Leave me alone. Or people that are, libertarians, or they just want to be left alone. Let me live my life. Less government. I want freedom of choice. This is the basic tenets here. Okay, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. That's not the left. The left isn't leave me alone. No, not at all. The left wants to get. The left says, "Fuck you. We're not going to leave you alone. We're not going to leave any of this alone until we take complete control over this thing." But there's the left-right again. The left-right paradigm. The left-right dynamic complex, which is all part of it, right? It's all part of this stratagem in a lot of ways to squeeze us and put us in a vice grip in the middle. Shifting topics just a little bit here, but still on the political side. Donald Trump signed the Omnibus Spending Bill. Now, this is a very interesting kind of moment in time for Trump and the Trump administration. Now, there are people who feel like, here's where it gets really interesting. I was listening to this Old Codger on Republic Broadcasting, this guy out of Florida. I don't know his name. But he was basically talking about how Trump fucked up. And that when somebody screws up, and this is the analogy, it was a terrible analogy. Let's say you have a son, and the son drinks and the son drives, and he gets pulled over for drunk driving, and he gets a ticket for driving under the influence. As a parent, what do? Well, you double down on support of your son. I'm like, this is a really bad analogy. He's using an analogy, and he's comparing Trump to a teenager. Trump is not a teenager. And he's comparing this moment in time where he was coerced and bum-rushed by Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan in order to sign this bill. And it was like the teenage kid who's coerced by his friends to, beer bong the night away and then get behind the wheel of a car. It's a terrible analogy for somebody who is, Trump turns 70, let's see, so he's turned 72 this year in May, 72, because he turned 70 when he got... He was 70 when he was elected, right? 70. There was that whole 7 thing. So he was 71 last year. He's 72 this year. That's a bad analogy to use for a 72-year-old man who wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. Terrible. And so he's saying we've got to stand by Trump. We have to stand by Trump. We have to double down. We cannot abandon it because that's what they want us to do. They want us to abandon the base, or the base to abandon Trump. We can't do it. We have to stand by this great patriot. This is exactly what he's saying. Okay. And there are people who believe that this is the case, and that spending bill was something that Trump had to do. His hands were tied. His hands were forced. So there's another side of this where the omnibus is not. The omnibus is not a budget. I'm going to read you this. This is a little bit of text here. Okay. All right. So the omnibus funding bill contains sabotage buried under a mountain of chaff. I'm going to read you this. This is part of it. This is part of the Omnibus 639. Page 639. Legalize or otherwise reduce penalties associated with the possession, use, or distribution of any Schedule 1 substance under the Controlled Substances Act, 21 U.S.C. 801 E.T. SEQ, or any tetrahydrocannabinol derivatives for recreational purposes. Let me read that to you again. Legalize or otherwise reduce penalties associated with possession, use, or distribution of any Schedule 1 substance. This is about drugs. This is in the omnibus. Or any tetrahydrocannabinol derivative for recreational purposes. This is Section 810. No funds available for obligation or expenditure by the District of Columbia government under any authority shall be expended for any abortion except where life of the mother would be endangered if the fetus were carried to term where the pregnancy is a result of an act of rape. Okay, so inside there, because people were complaining, there are two things in there. Basically, it's like, hey, we're going to reduce the penalties associated with possession, use, and distribution of any Schedule 1 substance. That's in the Omnibus Bill. Okay? Now, Schedule 1's a lot of drugs, but they're specifically referring to tetrahydrocannabinols, derivatives. So they're going to loosen the recreational penalties that they can through this Omnibus Bill. And by the way this is set up is that Trump is the guy who gets to trigger all of this. This is what Obama did for his entire 8 years. Obama never had a budget. What he did is he ran this omnibus. It was a very clever move on Obama's part because he could basically say where the money would be spent, where it wouldn't be spent, which was kind of it was a way for Obama to play the role of a dictator in a lot of ways. And so here we go. We're in the realm of Caesars now. We're in the realm of Caesars. We're in the realm of Rome, where the president, through executive order and through this very interesting big maneuver in terms of navigating the omnibus. So there's a sense that Trump knew what was going on. At least that's what some of these people have been saying. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Section 810, no funds available for obligation or expenditure by the District of Columbia governments under any authority shall be expended for any abortion except where the life of the mother would be endangered if the fetus were carried to term or where the pregnancy is the result of an act of rape or incest. So even though there is $500 million tucked away for Planned Parenthood, based on this section, Section 810, page 639, guess what? It's in there. It is in there. He can control the money. He can deny the money. At the same time, he can also exert his will over the legalization or the decriminalization and lessening the penalty of cannabis, tetrahydrocannabinols. Okay? Interesting, right? Interesting stuff. So there's a whole group of people that are small group who are saying that Trump knew exactly what he was doing because now he has the throttle. He has the throttle. So here's some more information around that. Here we go. Research laws, the 1970 law and statutes. It's not an official federal budget. It is an omnibus bill, not a budget. He, quote unquote, outsmarted them again. Congress basically screwed themselves by not passing a budget. Per the Constitution, the president must adhere to a budget set forth by Congress and direct the expenditures as provided therein. This is another one of those big porculus bills like they gave Obama for 8 years. This is not a budget. An omnibus spending bill may have some instructions as to how the money will be spent, but Obama ignored them. He spent the money or didn't spend it however he wanted to. And Congress didn't do a thing about it because they couldn't. So this is very interesting. And perhaps there's some chicanery. Well, there's always chicanery going on in Washington, D.C. We have no doubt about that. But maybe, just maybe, with this Mercury retrograde, we have to re-examine what exactly took place. And remember, he signed the bill under a Mercury retrograde. That's right. He signed it under Mercury retrograde. So the bill may not be actually used in accordance with the signature. It's just something to think about. I'm not here, beating my drum for 4D chess. I'm not here beating my drum for QAnon, who I have very dubious about. Oh, by the way, though, there was a major flight to Guantanamo out of Miami. Just something I picked up on the radar. All right, why don't we go into the old chat room here and see what's going on in the chat room. I think we've got a few comments here. There's one comment. Oh, there's Judy. Hey, Judy. Yeah, that was a great show last night. I had a lot of fun doing it. So here we are. We're Mercury retrograde. It's all about the reclamation of will. Mercury retrograde. Mercury, how we think, how we communicate, and how we do. It's under the sign of Aries, which is action, the activation of will. And in retrograde, it's about reclamation, reclaiming, realigning, remembering who we are, where we came from, and doing our best, our very best to stay organic beings in an incredibly synthetic and artificial world. That's what's going on here. So to that end, stay human, do your best, stay in touch with your humanity. And sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's really painful to stay in touch with your humanity, especially when the world around you seems to be completely insane, off its rocker, and inhumane, even though it is doing everything in its power to convince you and the rest of us that it is absolutely humane. No, quite the contrary in many instances. So stay in touch, stay human out there, and use your all your six senses in order to do so. Sixth and beyond, correct? All right. Also, use your head to discern what's real, and your heart to say, "Oh man, I didn't do time tunnel. We got to go time tunnel, right?" I'll tell you what, we're going to skip time tunnel today, and the only reason why we're skipping time tunnel today is because I'm in the close. But I actually looked. I had it all set up. I looked at what happened historically on this day, and I got to tell you, it's not that great. It's not that great. So let's keep our atoms, subatomic particles, molecules intact for today. We'll take the time tunnel trip tomorrow. Have a great Monday out there.